What is consciousness? On what plane does this illusion exist?
That's interesting. That runs into, to my eye, various philosophical problems.
And sometimes I wonder, is either perhaps everything's conscious or nothing is conscious?
It's okay if reality is bigger than what we experience. To say that it's all a mass, that nothing exists outside of consciousness, that just seems just a way too parochial way to set out on this journey of discovery. Somebody who's happy to speculate, well, maybe there isn't a reality at large. Maybe it's all just consciousness on some level. And that's interesting. That runs into, to my eye, various philosophical problems. Or at least you have to do a lot. You have to add to that picture of idealism. That's usually the whole family of views that would just say that the universe is just mind or just consciousness. At bottom, will go by the name of idealism in Western philosophy. You have to add to that idealistic picture all kinds of epicycles and kind of weird coincidences, and to get the predictability of our experience and the success of materialist science to make sense in that context. What does it mean to say that there's only consciousness at bottom? Right? Nothing outside of consciousness, because no one's ever experienced anything outside of consciousness. There's no scientist has ever done an experiment where they were contemplating data, no matter how far removed from our sense bases, whether it's they're looking at the Hubble deep field or they're smashing atoms or whatever tools they're using, they're still just experiencing consciousness and its various deliverances, and layering their concepts on top of that. That's always true, and yet that somehow doesn't seem to capture the character of our continually discovering that our materialist assumptions are confirmable, right? So you take the fact that we unleash this fantastic amount of energy from within an atom, right? We have the theoretical suggestion that it's possible, right? We come back to Einstein. There's a lot of energy in that matter, right? And what if we could release it, right? And then we perform an experiment at, in this case, the Trinity test site in New Mexico, where the people who are most adequate to this conversation, people like Robert Oppenheimer, are standing around not altogether certain it's going to work, right? They're performing an experiment. They're wondering what's going to happen. They're wondering if their calculations around the yield are off by orders of magnitude. Some of them are still wondering whether the entire atmosphere of Earth is going to combust, right? The nuclear chain reaction is not going to stop. And lo and behold, there was that energy to be released from within the nucleus of an atom. What the picture one forms from those kinds of experiments, and just the knowledge, is just our understanding of evolution, just the fact that the Earth is billions of years old and life is hundreds of millions of years old, and we weren't here to think about any of those things. And all of those processes were happening, therefore, in the dark. And they are the processes that allowed us to emerge, from prior life forms in the first place. To say that it's all a mass, that nothing exists outside of consciousness, it just seems like a bizarrely anthropocentric claim, analogous to, the moon isn't there if no one's looking at it, right? I mean, the moon as a moon isn't there if no one's looking at it. I'll grant that. But the idea that there's nothing there, that there's nothing that corresponds to what we experience as the moon, unless someone's looking at it, that just seems just a way too parochial way to set out on this journey of discovery.
There is something there. There's a computer waiting to render the moon when you look at it. The capacity for the moon to exist is there. Right. So if we're indeed living a simulation, which I find a compelling thought experiment, it's possible that there's a kind of rendering mechanism, but not in a silly way that we think about in video games, but in some kind of more fundamental physics way.
And we have to account for the fact that it renders experiences that no one has had yet, that no one has any expectation of having. Or to bring it back to mathematics, like certain numbers are prime whether we have discovered them or not, right? Like there's the highest prime number that anyone can name now, and then there's the next prime number that no one can name, and it's there, right? So it's like it's to say that our minds are putting it there. The base layer of reality is consciousness, right? You know, that we're identical to the thing that is rendering this reality. There's some, you know, hubris is the wrong word, but it's like it's okay if reality is bigger than what we experience, you know, and it has structure that we can't anticipate. Again, there's certainly a collaboration between our minds and whatever is out there to produce what we call, you know, the stuff, of life. But I don't know. I mean, there are a few stops on the train of idealism and kind of New Age thinking and Eastern philosophy that philosophically, I don't see a need to take. I mean, the place experientially and scientifically, I feel like it's you can get everything you want, acknowledging that consciousness has a character that can be explored from its own side, so that you're bringing kind of the first person experience back into the conversation about, you know, what is a human mind and, you know, what is true.